Hello everyone, welcome back to another recap. Today was round 7 of Reykjavik Open and it was quite a fun game. Let me show you right away what happened. So in round 7 I faced Blaze Jave. I don't know for sure how to pronounce this, but a beautiful name I have to say. And I knew that my opponent plays a Sicilian, but many different ones, and the games that were in the database were also pretty old, so I was not entirely sure what to prepare, and I was also for the longest time not sure what to play against a Sicilian if my opponent were to do that. So yeah, I was basically unsure for a long time, and in the end, a little bit just before the game, I decided, okay, I'm just going to play my own chess because my opponent is rated 1900 and I should not have any second thoughts about a game. I should just try to treat it as any blitz game that I've been playing for the past few years, right? And when I play against Sicilian, I always feel happy because I'm attacking, and it's much easier to attack against lower-rated opponents than higher-rated opponents. So let's take a look what happened. E4, C5, knight of 3, D6, and here this is the knight of setup, but my opponent went for the Scheveningen variation. E5 is a Nido variation, so that is a little bit different. But my opponent went for E6. And I expected this honestly, which is part of the reason why I also went for this, because I was excited to attack. I just play F3 and I just start attacking already early on. I was not entirely sure about the move order. As I said, I did not really prepare, so I just went with the flow. And I tried to play as I always play online at Blitz game. So then I just went G5 because my opponent did not defend with H6. Usually that's what they do over here. I think maybe the knight on C6 is a little bit misplaced. I'm not so sure, but something felt off about this. I just went G5 right away, knight D7, queen D2. I'm just developing because I thought, okay, I don't want to rush too quickly because my king is still in the center. Maybe I should try to castle it sooner or later. So queen D2, knight takes D4, bishop takes D4. And here I was feeling really optimistic because my bishop is stopping the bishop from black from developing because it has to keep defending that pawn G7. And if you play a move such as E5 to kick my bishop away from here and shut down that diagonal, my knight can jump to D5 and I'm just enjoying a really pleasant position. So I feel like, some coordination here with the pieces is going really wrong here for my opponent. Anyway, my opponent went B5, long castle, B4, knight A4, and this knight is of course on the edge of the board, but I am feeling confident about it because I can always play B3 and retreat the knight to B2 and should be fine. Rook B8 is what my opponent played, king B1. I just want to put my king into safety, and at some point I may want to play C3 to trade those pawns, and then I'll enjoy an open C file. So always useful to put the king on B1, very common in Sicilian type of openings. Bishop B7 is what my opponent played, and here I went B3 because my opponent is trying to play bishop C6. So I need to free up some square for the knight, which is trapped currently. So that's why B3. Bishop C6, I was actually surprised to see this move because it does hang the pawn on A6, and I wasn't entirely sure if I can take this. And this is the moment where I started to spend quite some time. I think I spent around 15 minutes on this move. Do I take on A6 or not? So for the longest time I wanted to take, and then I switched and wanted to play knight B2 back simply. But then I went back to bishop takes A6 and I was wondering, why am I actually not taking? Because it does feel really good. And if I don't take, I'm basically allowing my opponent to, let's say, knight B2, A5, and my opponent will play A4 in the next move. And I thought I would be allowing a bit too much, and I didn't want to allow this so easily. So that's why I thought I need to take that pawn, and I didn't really see quite the danger after taking this pawn. So I was really confident about my chances, and I thought it actually helps me because as long as this black king is in the center, I can open the position. I'm okay with it, and my king, I should be able to defend it. I don't see any big danger just yet. Turns out that both moves were perfectly fine, similarly good, but of course, I just like this because it opens up the position in some way. Queen a5, bishop c4, I'm just simply retreating. I thought my opponent would play rook a8 first, because if I play bishop c4 now, after bishop takes a4, I lose a piece, right? So I can't do this. That's why I thought I had to play queen e2, and then my opponent would play queen a5, and then I go back to c4. And I thought this is maybe a little bit more helpful along the a file, but I wasn't entirely sure if this was any good for my opponent or not. It helps in the sense that you're putting pressure on the queen side, but I don't have to move this knight, and this bishop on d4 is always covering those important squares, the square a1, so black cannot checkmate me, so I can just run away with the king if I need to. So yeah, I thought at least trying to keep the tension is maybe better here, but my opponent went for queen a5 first, because after bishop c4, my opponent took right away. And I was really happy about this, because I thought, well, I have everything covered with my two bishops, and they're just like sniping across those diagonals over here, and also defending my king at the same time. So really unpleasant for my opponent, of course. And I went for f4. Because, yeah, I don't need the h-pawn anymore, I can just push with the f-pawn, because as soon as my opponent plays e5, I have the square d5 in possession, and what can my opponent do about this? And if I want, I can put a rook there, and I'm not so scared about this knight. I can always get this knight off the board by taking with my dark square bishop, and this bishop on f8 is just simply a sad bishop. So my opponent went queen c6, attacking my bishop and pawn at the same time, so I went queen e2. And this is also sort of helping me with the fact that my opponent cannot play knight b6, because now there's bishop b5 and black loses the queen. So that's also a problem. So after knight c5, I considered to take here on c5, but I thought I can just play f5. The reason is because after queen takes e4, I'm able to give a check on b5. And let's say the king moves anywhere. Let's say here, bishop takes c5, and I'm simply winning the piece. There's no way for my opponent to defend. And yeah, funnily enough, even after king e7, bishop takes, you may think queen takes e2, and then after bishop takes e2, you take back. But instead of that, I can simply take on d6 with check, an intermediate check, and like all the pieces are simply disappearing. I feel like there's so many tactics in this position. So anyway, that's not what my opponent did, but it was of course an important move to consider. Instead, my opponent went for knight takes e4, and after f takes e6, knight c3 check, bishop takes c3. Yeah, it looks really dangerous for white over here. I went bishop b3, king a1 works also fine, but I prefer bishop b3 just to make sure that the rook doesn't come in somehow, and I'm just covering all the threats at once. There's also no rook takes b3, I don't have to worry about this. I can just take however I want, either c takes b3 or a takes b3, whatever I feel like. And yeah, that means that everything is covered. And at the same time, I'm also attacking here. My pawn is already on e6, so f takes e6 is what my opponent played. I was expecting bishop e7, but I thought after e takes f7, this is simply winning. King f8, rook e1, and the threats are just too much for my opponent. If my opponent, let's say, I don't know, defends here, I can start preparing rook takes d6 with some queen e6 or something, so there's a lot going on here. So then my opponent took instead already queen takes e6, bishop e7, and now rook h e1. And this is the moment where my opponent resigned. The reason is because there's so much going on here. The king is still in the center, cannot castle. The bishop is under attack, and I'm threatening checkmate, of course, and I'm also threatening rook takes d6. My opponent could have tried still with queen d7 to defend everything for now, but then queen f7, king d8, queen takes g7, and I'm simply picking up all of the pawns. The king is still in the center, and the attack of black is completely over. So yeah. Anyway, that is what happened in today's game. It was really nice. I'm really happy about this game. It was really smooth, and yeah, I'm really happy with my opening choice. A nice attacking game, and we go next. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you in the next one.